Here's the problem. Support structures in 3D printing are often essential for getting a 3D model to actually print, and those support structures aren't always the nicest things to work with, for a few different reasons. They can mar up the surfaces they were in contact with, making for poorer print quality where they were touching, and they can sometimes be challenging to remove, either because they've bonded too well to the model, or are interlocked with it in some way or another, making them challenging to actually extract. These difficulties can often lead to breakages, especially on the more delicate models like miniatures, which is something that I've personally been really interested in lately in printing with FDM printers. So what's the solution then? Well, print the supports in a different material. There are special materials that you can buy for printing just the supports in, for example PVA and BVOH, which both can be dissolved in water after printing. There's also designer support materials that have been engineered to come away easily and cleanly, like this support for PLA by Bambu Lab. Finally, some material combinations also just lend themselves really well to being used as supports, like PETG with PLA for example. They do stick to one another a little, but only very lightly, and so do separate easily from one another, making either a good choice as support material for the other. So okay, great, support materials exist. Why isn't everyone using them then already? Well, hot noodle printers like this A1 here have one tool head with one hot end, one extruder, and one nozzle, so you can only print in a single filament. You can add an automatic material system, an AMS, which now allows you to switch between different materials during printing, but there's a major issue with this thing that deters most people from even trying. It is extremely slow. Like this 3.5 hour print here, watch it balloon out to over 2 days when we simply just ask the printer to switch to a different material for those support structures. Ouch. You can bring that down by quite a lot if you ask the slicer to only print the support material for the interface layers. That's just the layers where the supports are actually coming into direct contact with the model, and you can see that that's reduced this print to 13.5 hours. But again, remember, without any material switching at all, this was just a 3.5 hour job. So it's always been a pretty significant trade-off to introduce another material for your supports. Enter the Bambu Lab H2D dual nozzle 3D printer. If you've been looking at this new H2D and thinking, damn, I bet that printer would be absolutely perfect for running a dedicated support material for my 3D prints, especially my teeny tiny little highly detailed and delicate tabletop miniatures, well, me too. So I actually bought one, some 0.2mm nozzles, and a few different support materials to try out here for this exact purpose. That's right, this is not a freebie sent to me by Bambu Lab. I've got skin in the game on this one, and I'm still recovering. Please send help. Patreon.com/once-in-a-six-side. Okay, I've really struggled with how to write this video because no matter how I arrange the pieces, there's just no way to put this one together that isn't completely disappointing, which you've probably already gathered from the title of the video. So rather than drag this one out for 40 minutes in excruciating detail of everything I tried that didn't work, I'm just going to do my best to summarize my findings here for you all now, and I'll finish with my first impressions of this machine and whether I regret buying it or not. I've thrown a lot at the H2D since it arrived here in my studio, and I think I've now finally done enough testing here to claw my way onto some solid ground from which to draw my conclusions. And the bottom line is this. If you buy this machine for the plug-and-play, just-works track record of previous Bambu Lab printers, with the hopes that this one's going to let you print your complex models, like maybe miniatures for example, using dedicated support materials like PETG with PLA or those dissolvables, I've got some bad news. And before I break it all down, I want to reiterate what I'm saying here in another way, just to be really clear on this point and set your expectations for the remainder of this video accordingly. I'm the kind of user who wants to simply drag my models into the slicer, sync the printer with the software so it knows what materials I've got in there, choose the materials I want to print the models in, the level of detail I want them printed at, turn on supports, and choose the type I want, and whether I want them to be entirely in another material or just for the interface layers. And then the slicer just prepares all the settings for me based on those simple inputs without me having to be some kind of technical wizard who can build vorons and tune print profiles. And I think most of you watching are probably the same, but whenever I share struggles with FDM printers here on this channel, I always get these comments telling me that I just need to tune the sideways fumbling or decrease the inverse reactive current, or simply tighten the prefabricated Amulite baseplate and it'll print great. And I know you mean well, and I'm sure most of the modern FDM 3D printing crowd in this post-Bambu Lab world, the thought of tweaking and tuning on these printers wells up a deep sense of foreboding and anxiety that puts me off printing anything altogether. FDM printers just have so many moving parts and so many more settings. They're completely impenetrable for most people when they don't work. And I just want to print cool and useful things for my hobby. I don't want troubleshooting complicated robots to be my hobby. So everything that I tried in this video is just default filament, support, and print settings as provided to me by Bambu Lab. So all right, now that we got that out of the way, here's what I found in no particular order, starting with the dissolvable support material, PVA. PVA is a cursed nightmare filament from hell that refuses to print successfully on the H2D in any configuration at all. 0.4mm nozzles, 0.2mm nozzles, normal supports, tree supports. It doesn't matter if I set the material to be interface layers only or if I set it to be the entire support structure. I have a 100% failure rate with this material. I tried drying it thoroughly like Bambu Lab recommends, first with the AMS2 Pro, which didn't help and isn't recommended either. I then tried drying it in the IBOS Polyphemus for a whole day at 70 degrees C, the highest temperature it will go, and that also didn't help. This filament just always clogs the nozzle, like always. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I got no idea how to clear that, that's fine. And like I said, I didn't get a single successful print with this cursed high-dollar translucent noodle. 0 out of 10, don't even bother. BVOH is another dissolvable support material that I had hoped to try. I hear it's more forgiving than PVA, however, regrettably it's been out of stock everywhere in Australia, and so for the time being remains untested with my H2D. So let's talk next about support for PLA. This stuff, when it works great, it's easy to remove, and leaves behind a really tidy surface where it was in contact with the model. However, this stuff has such a loose hold on PLA that often whenever you're trying to print with it, it'll just pop right off, leading to print failures. This is especially true of any small and delicate parts where there's very little surface area contact between the supports and the model, so you can basically guarantee print failures if you try and use this for miniatures. I certainly had no successes in this application. But regardless of what you're printing, it really just ends up feeling like a complete crapshoot, because sometimes it fails even where you do have lots of surface area contact. So it's hard to recommend this one as well. And unfortunately, my experience with this filament just so far leaves me feeling really uneasy about doing any further prints with it. Okay, now let's talk about PETG. This lovely bright green stuff is PETG Pro by Ints Logic, which I believe is like the premium line of filaments by Sunlu, sort of like what Lexus is to Toyota, I guess. Anyway, here's what I found. PETG and PLA together can net you some really fantastic results when it works. Like the previous support material though, this stuff is tenuous at best, and I really find myself apprehensive to go starting any print job relying on it as a support material. Whether it's just for the interface layers or for the entirety of the support structure, I found this combination of filaments to be very tricky. In fact, if you choose interface layers, this seems to create more opportunities for the two materials to come unstuck, increasing your chance of print failures. So toward the end of my tests, I just stopped trying to use them in that way altogether. And the same goes for the reverse too. Printing PETG parts with PLA supports, I've sadly just found it too unreliable to really count on. You can get some amazing parts with incredibly clean surfaces, but every print just feels like a big roll of the dice. Again, small islands with low surface area contact between the supports and the model are highly likely to fail, so miniatures just aren't worth it in my opinion. I did get one successful print using PETG for interface layers on a Mini, but the quality of the teeth on that chainsaw blade where they were contacting the support material is not nearly as good as I'd hoped. And so yeah, I'm not even sure it's worth the increased risk of print failure at all. So that's everything I was able to test. Do I regret buying a H2D? Well, before I talk about that, I should first talk about how I was even able to afford this printer at all to make this very video independently from Bambu Lab. And that is of course with the direct support from you, the viewers. So if you enjoy my videos, you appreciate the work I put into them, and you get some value and entertainment out of them, Your support on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, or even through YouTube memberships, it really makes all the difference. Of course, if you can't spare a few bucks, that's totally cool. I would still like to ask that you consider just following me on Patreon. It's totally free, and if you do, I'll even give you the files for this handy dandy little spool roller I made. And also some super glue holders, how about that? And some paint caddies, and even some tabletop terrain. So yeah, it costs you nothing, and it's just a nice way for me to let you know when new videos come out, as YouTube isn't always super reliable at that, as we all know. But if you did join as a paid member on any of these platforms, I actually have a load of great rewards too, so you don't get nothing for your money. And also you get to sleep easy at night, knowing you're helping keep little Merry and Pippin fed and content. Paid members get access to the Welcome Pack, which is absolutely brimming with amazing models for your tabletop hobby. You also get to join our Discord server, where we have a really just one of the best 3D printing communities. But also for this month of April 2025, there are some exclusive rewards for Once in a Six Side members, which have each generously been donated by the great and talented Arcane Whiskers, C Cohort, Daka Store, FabricatorsLair, Goetia Miniatures, Stoneforge, and Tractor Miniatures. So come get yourself all these awesome rewards before they're gone. Thank you, and I'll see you in the Discord. Oh, and just quickly, one of our benefactors, FabricatorsLair, is running their Epic Sector Industry campaign, a 3D printable, grimdark, industrial, epic scale terrain kit for games like Legion Imperialis, Adeptus Titanicus, or even Epic 40K. So if you've been looking for that next big terrain project, FabricatorsLair has got you covered. Alright, back to the video. Okay, so, do I regret buying the H2D? Well, it's complicated. As a multi-material printer, specifically for the application of dedicated support materials, I'm extremely disappointed with the H2D. After all of my testing, my confidence is now extremely low that I'll get a successful print no matter which materials I go with or settings I choose in the slicer. When I slice a model in PLA and use PLA for the supports, I'm not biting my nails wondering if that model is going to make it to the finish line or not, as it's extremely rare that those prints fail, and most of the time it's not even that bad to remove those supports, nor is the scarring that big a deal either. It can be tricky on delicate models like miniatures, definitely, but for most practical things it's rarely going to be worth the risk of introducing another material here. Especially the bigger jobs, where lots of filament is on the line. Unless Bambu Labs can seriously refine these settings for multi-material supports, I cannot recommend this machine for this use case specifically. It's just too unreliable. However, if we take a step back from this idea of dedicated support materials for a second, and just look at this machine for some more regular FDM 3D printer use cases, it's incredible. I did have some buyer's remorse when I first ordered the thing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, did I really just spend over 3,000 bucks on a 3D printer? But the moment I got the H2D unboxed, set up, and printing here, I have absolutely fallen in love with it, and I'm definitely going to be keeping it around for many moons yet. There are a couple of quirks I noticed, like this part when I printed it in FlashForge ASA. It was mostly good, but then for some reason at the top, the print quality kind of just fell over. I'm not sure why that happened, but whatever, I got a useful part. But also the air filtration and recirculation wasn't as effective as I had hoped, because this print made my whole house reek of burnouts. So I had to open all the doors and windows for that one. Also, the poops sometimes build up for a really long time and glob onto the outside of the nozzle. And I don't know if it needs the help here or not, but there were a couple of times where I couldn't resist just going in there and giving them a little poke to help them out. Also, the poops sometimes just don't make it out of the chute at all and end up on the bed, which is kind of annoying. I also had some poor first layer performance a couple of times for reasons that I have no idea why and I haven't been able to repeat. But otherwise, first layers have all been perfect. I have increased the default bed temperature though by 10 degrees for PLA to help get better adhesion after seeing CNC Kitchen's video, and that seems to be working a treat. But those minor grievances aside, it is without a doubt the most premium printer I've ever had come through here. And everything about it just seems exceptionally well thought through and executed. And the whole user experience of this thing is just top notch. I won't get into details here as others have already covered this machine in depth really well, but I will leave some links down below to a couple of videos that I thought were quite good and covered this printer accurately. This printer with all its bells and whistles certainly gives me the sense that I can print anything I want. Like if I want to make more durable or heat resistant parts, it can handle all of that. but also the large build volume here is enabling those more ambitious projects. Like, I wish I had this thing for the hobby desk drawers that I recently did here on the channel. And I think this would be great for cosplayers too. But for me personally, I think this machine is definitely overkill, as I kind of just find myself at a loss for the most part as to what I should even print with it. Because the kind of stuff I like to print all of the time is pretty much just always PLA, and my A1 printers handle that just fine and just as well. So obviously I'm not going to recommend this printer for dedicated support material printing, at least not yet. Right now it's just not ready for that. But if you need a big printer and you want that Bambu Lab quality and ease of use, the H2D is a no-brainer, and I really think you'll be smitten with it. For my tabletop gamer fam though, just buy an A1 or A1 Mini. You're only going to be printing in PLA anyway, and those printers will give you flawless prints every single time. But should you ever get the itch to try other materials, you should still have a great time printing things like PETG and TPU on those A1s. Just get yourself a filament dryer to help out. Now, I'm not going to leave any affiliate links down below because I'm sick of being called a shill every time I praise this company for their great products. Say what you will about Bambu Lab, but the shit they make is extremely good. And yeah, I don't want there to be any doubt here when I say that their printers are the best that I've tried, and I recommend them wholeheartedly if you want something that just works without having to know shit from about filament printers and their myriad settings. Dedicated support materials aside, currently. But I am keeping my ear to the ground, and I will let you know the moment I find something else that's just as good or better. Anyone from Prusa watching want to send me a Core 1 or an XL even? I would buy one, but the shipping to Australia is like $500, so forget about it. Yeah, I almost bought the XL a few months ago for this very video idea, but it's like an extra $2,000 more than the H2D. And I know there's going to be comments on this video about the Prusa XL. Oh, you should just get a Prusa. Either you don't realize how much more expensive that printer is for most people to buy, or I don't know, you just hate the idea that any other brand could possibly make a good 3D printer. Joseph, if you're watching, or anyone from the Prusa team, set me up. I want to try it, but yeah, I'm already way too over-invested at this point in this idea of dedicated support materials with like a multi-material 3D printer. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you in your own purchasing decisions. Thanks for watching, and if you're new here, I hope I earned your subscription. Cheers.